Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Member Hurley,
Present.
Member Daschle,
Here.
Chair Lowry.
Yes.
We do not have a quorum, but we can continue with non-action items.
Okay. First, I know we normally swear in, people are going to make comments. Do we need to do that at this time?
Well, you still got, do you need to approve the agenda?
Yes, I know, but I'm just saying,
Without action items, the swearing in is for the.
gotcha. So that's what my question was. We don't have to worry about that. Okay. Right, so approval of the agenda. Everybody an opportunity to look at it. Anybody have anything they want to add or make any comments about before we go forward with that?
But that's an action item, so we'd go to audience comments.
Since you typically approve the agenda with a motion.
We have to approve the agenda, right?
You don't have the ability to do that.
That's been your practice, is to approve it with a motion. It's not necessarily required, but that's been your past practice in order to make a motion or approve a motion.
Okay, well, yeah, this is a little bit different because we haven't ever had a non-quorum scenario. So if we make a motion and it doesn't really make a difference, does it?
I think you can approve the agenda as a consensus.
Okay.
That would be an action item, if there's a consensus to approve. the-
Okay, I guess we'll do a roll call for that to approve. I think make a motion to approve.
No roll call, just
No.
as long as nobody has an objection.
Chair,
Anybody have an objection to the agenda?
Chair, I just ask if we could please take items 6A after 5A. Those are both informational and discussion items, so no action is required. We do have the applicant present for item 6A, so I wanted to,
So what is your,
the informational item, site plan for
Yep.
702 Paso Grill Way, if that could be taken after item 5A, the design review for 1004 Paso Grill Way, and then we can go back to discussion
yes,
items.
I gotcha, sure.
Thank you.
All right. I guess we cannot do the approval of minutes. We can't do the action items, so we go through 3 and 4. And
We
now
could do general, we could do general public comment if there is any.
I have a question. Adrian Summerall, I was action item 4C. Will that be postponed to the next scheduled hearing, or is that a special hearing?
We will reach out to you right after this hearing, but you will be on the next scheduled hearing, which is September 4th at 2:30. We will put your item first, along with the 2 certificates of appropriateness for demolition.
That's me, the A and B.
Yes, let me just say this. If you're here for the demolition,
Right.
either ones,
Yeah, and I'm here for Susan Hatton. She went to a lot of trouble. We did a notary certificate and all kinds of things so I could represent her.
right.
At this meeting, it's a little disappointing that y'all don't have a quorum.
Me too, news to me 1 minute ago, so that's just the way it is. I don't know what to tell you, except for we have to have 4 people to make votes, and I believe it was just a moments ago we found out we don't have a 4th person, so,
I see 5 people sitting up there.
well, they aren't board members.
Okay, I won't hold that against you.
So these 2 people right here, all right, are not here, and you have to have 4 people to have a quorum so we can vote. We don't have those 4 people, so all these action items that require us to make a motion and make a vote on, we can't do. So it's
Yeah.
almost as if there's no meeting today, as far as you're concerned, unfortunately, because you've spent your time to come here and all that kind of stuff, but,
And prep and everything else, and I know that she's been deferred already once. It seems a little unfair.
you know what, I would say it is unfair,
Because this
but there's nothing we can do about it.
was postponed from the 6th was the original date? Yeah.
Of this month,
First Thursday of the month.
yes.
Right.
Which was done, I believe, by the city because they're getting the roof repaired maybe, or why was that done?
That's correct, yes.
Right. So it wasn't the board members that had any involvement with any of that. I feel for you, I guess. I can throw this out, but I don't think I'm going to get a good answer, which is, we're the first Thursday of every month, but sometimes, we can do special meetings, but that takes notice requirements, which oftentimes is 10 days or 2 weeks. And so we're just, I'm sorry, what?
That probably puts us around September 4th.
Well, that's what did you say the date? Yeah, you're exactly right. It does put us to that date. So, I apologize, but it's really out of our control.
There's no one who can substitute in?
No. I mean, I wish I could help you, but I'm just saying it's just, okay, I've said all I can say, all right?
See you September 4th.
Right, so if you're here for the for demolitions, for the certificate of appropriateness for the floodplain management, that was you, I believe, Adrian, if that was your name, or, yeah, those items cannot be heard today, unfortunately. So I think we are back to where we're talking about audience comments. All right, so on today's agenda will be a design review of 1004 Passagirl Way. There will be a site plan for 702 Passagirl Way. I'm just trying to, if you all can follow me, if you have your agenda there, the second page. So we'll do 5A, B, C, D, and 6, although we're going to take that a little bit earlier. If you have any comments about those particular items, you can wait and make your comments at that time when that comes up. If you want to make a general comment about things that's not on the calendar, that's fine, and you can make that comment now. Do any audience members have a comment they'd like to make to anything general? Okay. Hearing none, then I think we can move right on to discussion item 5A, which was the design review, case number 25093 for 1004 Passagirl Way. And Brandon, if you'll give us a second to rotate through about 100 pages here.
I have a couple of PowerPoint slides to go through too. If we could get that pulled up, please. Chair, are you ready?
Give me half a minute.
That's fine.
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Berry.
Okay. This is a design review for the property of 1004 Passagirl Way. It's case number 25093. The applicant who is present is Nate Meyer for Laura and Dean Davis. The applicant is requesting construction of a new single-family residence built to the house medium standards of the Passagirl Overlay District. It's made pursuant to Land Development Code Section 20.24. This property has a residential office retail zoning. It is a low-intensity mixed-use district. They are building a single-family detached residence, which is a permitted use. You can see here the layout of the lot. It's coming up a little light on the screen, but it is also in the packet as well. You can see this is the ground floor layout. At the back of the residence facing the alley is the garage. There is no direct vehicle access from Passagirl Way that is being established, which is consistent with the existing lot layout. In the front there is a storage building. Now this is showing the ground level. There is habitable space above this within the bounds that are generally shown in the line adjacent to the red. It's a little bit hard to make out, but there's a flat roof over that. That should become more evident looking at the renderings. You can see this here. The top left rendering is the alleyway view. You can see the northeast to the top right, southeast from Passagirl Way to the bottom left, and then the southwest at the alley on the bottom right. And here is an elevation. Again, this is a little bit easier to see in your packet. This is the elevation. Staff had a few zoning comments. These have been shared with the applicant. The first is pertaining to the height of the building. They do meet the overall height of 40 feet above grade. They are using the natural grade standard, which allows for appurtenances no taller than 40 feet above grade level. It appears from the elevation and from the rendering that the only projection above 36 feet, which is the maximum height for a flat roof when using the standard, is stair roof access, which is not considered habitable space. They are allowed to have that projection. I would just like for the architect to confirm that. The driveway at the rear of the lot connected with the alley did appear to be a little bit wider than the code allows for. It cannot exceed 20 feet. I just wanted an acknowledgement on that. And then another standard, this gets into these design standards, is that the patio area under the building exceeds the 20% transparency standard. You can see that in the top right rendering. That is wider than the 20% that the city allows for a transparent ground level. And that is part of the architectural standards in section Land Development Code section 20.21. Our design reviewer had a few comments as well. First was to provide additional support for the design criteria. The vertical width, which is effectively that the bottom level of the structure clearly supports the levels above it, should be more clearly delineated. That might be established through a different rendering, a different orientation of the building, but she did want that to be demonstrated. Again, going back to the ground floor transparency, that should be identified. I have spoken with the designer for this project. He did say that he had looked at different finishes for the exterior wall. He felt that those did not match the design of the building, but he can speak in more detail to that if possible. There is additional landscape screening that's necessary. The applicant in the past has provided a landscape screen at time of permitting. There is no porch or stoop, so additional landscaping is required by code due to the frontage screening requirements. There's also a blank wall at the ground level. You can see that in the bottom right of the rendering. It does not appear to type into the overall design. We do not have specific architectural standards that are applied to these buildings. However, with buildings that are not naturally fit with a porch or stoop, those design criteria still need to be met. I have offered to the applicant that we can meet with our design reviewer if he would like to go into more detail on these. He may have responses available or not. So as always, this is an introduction, and the board can make other comments should they have any. The architect for this project, who is the applicant, is present, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, does Mr. Meyer want to come forward? Please state your name for the record.
Hello, Nate Meyer.
Anything you want to tell us in response to what Mr. Berry has said?
Well, maybe could you go back to the zoning?
Could we pull the renderings back, or the PowerPoint? Any particular slide?
Yeah, I think I think you had one question about the stairwell, and yeah, that is lower, or that's the only part that I guess projects.
Okay.
It's under like I think it's 40 feet is max, right?
That's the maximum for the top of the stairs, but for the occupiable space on the roof, you have that parapet as well, I believe, but I just wanted to confirm that stops at 36 feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, well that addresses that question.
Okay, and then the driveway, I can adjust that too. I think I'll probably end up changing that to a ribbon driveway, so I don't know if that, if it switches to ribbons, then do you kind of measure the whole width of that driveway, or is it?
It's the particular driving surface. We can talk about that, though. We are looking at the outer bounds of that driveway connection.
Okay.
So.
And then the patio area, so I was a little confused until I saw this. I didn't realize, so the 20% is max. So, yeah, I'll have to look at that. I don't think that'll be a problem to reduce that openness.
Okay.
Does it say that in the zoning code anywhere, actually?
It does. It's Land Development Code section 20.21. That's where the architectural screening standard is included.
And then So I guess to talk about the landscaping a little bit, that is no problem too. I kind of, for the renderings, tend to push the landscape to the side so I can see more of the building. And I think you mentioned also that I usually submit a landscape plan that's more finalized at permit, and I'm just, sorry, I'm looking at this little. So there would be a lot more landscaping, I would say.
Okay.
And let's see, comment one, I'm not totally clear on this comment one here, design comment, so I don't know if we talked to the design reviewer also, or mainly where it says vertical width clearly supports the upper level.
And I think that that probably ties in, and I'm sorry if I didn't address it more thoroughly, but with that ground level being open, that I think ties in with that 20% transparency standard, just to show that visually and from a massing perspective that the ground floor of the building supports the levels above it. It's not open on piles at the ground level. That's typically what we're looking for, but addressing the other comment may address that. We could meet with the design reviewer as well.
Okay. I'm, like, part of the concept of this plan is, if you could see it in the site plan, but it's a thin site, and so one thing I was trying to do was you can kind of, was trying to keep, I guess, views from the alley as someone pulls in to either the garage or the carport, and then sees through to the water. So even in plan, you can tell that there's it's more solid on the north side, aligned with the garage, and then the south side is meant to be really open, so that from the courtyard or the carport and the outdoor living, you kind of see out to the water.
And I believe on the south side with the carport, that is narrower and more in line with that 20% standard. I think it just widens out toward the front, and I think the front is typically what that focuses on. We focus on the front facades.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I'll just have to kind of take a look at it again.
Okay.
Could you go to those other design comments?
Yes, the last comment was just, and you had spoken to this in your response narrative, which I included in the agenda report to the board. You said you would look at different treatments for the ground level concrete wall, I believe that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said that they just didn't work with the overall design. Was that your?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of, I guess, that space is storage, so my first move was to put a nice big window there, and then the owner said, hey, we're going to be keeping stuff in here. We don't want it to to be visible from the sidewalk. So design-wise, I thought it would look cool to put a big window there. And so anyway, I ended up moving a window to the north side just to bring some light in there.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of see it if you're walking from the north down the sidewalk, so I thought there could be a plant there that's uplit, and then you'd have this, maybe a shadow of the plant cast onto that wall. I think with all the glass and then the openness of that living space, I felt like a solid plane there kind of makes sense to me, because then you have a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Are they saying to add windows there or change the?
No. Because it's a concrete wall right at the ground level. Is that correct? Had you looked at any kind of treatment or cladding or anything like that too?
Well, no, but looking at it now, it could have ideas of putting wood on the ceiling, so maybe, that wood comes out onto that wall surface. That's something I could look at.
Okay.
I have anybody have any questions, Mr. Meyer? I do. Can I get, Madam Clerk, can you put this on the overhead?
Sure.
Thank you. And I just put that, I'm having that shown so people can see it, but I guess my questions are for you, Mr. Meyer. Yeah, can you put it up there? Because I think, and this is going to be more relevant, I think, later today. So this is section 28.2 of the Historic Preservation Ordinance, which
Jamie, can we get the overhead?
I think it's up there.
It's
isn't it?
up.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, not on mine, sorry.
So this is one of the divisions that empowers, if that's the right word, the creation of the Historic Preservation Board. And I just want to point this out because oftentimes it depends on the design the people bring in. But it says in there, and if you just kind of go to the highlighted parts, the purpose of this division is to protect historical districts. All right, if you take away the verbiage, it doesn't apply to what I'm trying to say. So the purpose of this division is to protect historical districts. And as you know, everything south of 32nd Avenue on Paso Grill is a historical district, and that's the way it is and has been for a number of years. And then when you go down to subsection 6, it says, this is what our duties as a historical board is to do, is to encourage the design and construction of new structures. Okay, so that's good, you have a new structure here. But we're to be in harmony with and to preserve the integrity of the historic district, echoing design elements of size, height, and scale of existing historic structures. And so we've had, some people decide to build a new house and it fits right into Paso Grill, and other people decide they want to build a more modern looking house. And so as the board members here, we're supposed to be encouraging historic structures that fit into the scale of the existing historic structures that are there. Conversely, we should be discouraging modern architectural designs that don't fit into the historic look of the historic district. And so we don't have a lot of teeth up here. We understand that. This is, we're encouraging and discouraging and that kind of thing. But with that in mind, and I know you're just the architect working for your clients, why wouldn't the owners who have bought in Paso Grill in a historic district want to make a new structure that fits in more historically as opposed to looking like a modern, like you could have in any other location in a non-historic district? And you may not have an answer for that, but I'm sorry to kind of put you on the spot, but that's my question.
Well, yeah, I guess I can't answer for them, but
And I appreciate that, but see, we're in a situation, so this is the first time we as board members have seen this. We can't talk about it until we have the meeting, so this is new to us. It's already gone through the city where you have an opportunity to meet with them, and we're not there. And so yet, the ordinances, the rules say we're supposed to encourage this. But how do we do that if this is the first time we see it? That's why I'm putting you on the spot. You follow what I'm saying? I'm also putting the city on the spot in some respects, okay? Because, we're getting a lot of demolitions. So a lot of because of the storm, we're going to get a lot of new builds, and pretty soon we're not going to have anything historic about Paso Grill, which is the whole charm and quaintness of it. So all I can do is when people have a new build is encourage them to build something that looks historic. But I don't have, the board doesn't have an opportunity to do that until you've already done your plans and things of that nature. So I don't know if you have any recommendations, or if you can talk to your owners and tell them, and I want to hear from my two fellow board members here, but to me, this is a modern, non-historic design. I'm not saying you can't build it. My question is why? Why wouldn't they want to fit into the neighborhood more and look more like a historic structure? And so that's just a matter of the architect doing what the client wants to do, I assume. I've seen other stuff you've done. You've done some really nice stuff, so I'm well aware of your capabilities, all right? So, there's this, I don't know if my fellow board members have any because this is just discussion for information purposes at this point, whether you have any, because like I said, we've never talked. We haven't gotten together and said, this is what I think or this is what I don't think, because this is our first opportunity.
I would like to say something about the design. I get, the owners did say mid-century modern, so there are elements of this design. I mean, it's based on mid-century modern design.
Well, okay, I can, there's another, well, I think, I can find the definition somewhere, but, you know, when we talk about architectural aesthetics, right? And so you've been to a technical review where they have these things, which has nothing to do with aesthetics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the question would be, even though this might have elements of mid-century design, which I'm not gonna say it doesn't necessarily, but as Paso Grill is really historic 89, way before mid-century.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so even though it has elements of that, it's still, in the architectural aesthetic, in my opinion, is modern. And does not fit in to the architectural aesthetic of the historic district. So this is me encouraging your people to redesign it that make it look more historic, and discouraging you from building something that is not, does not fit into the historic vibe of the historic district. And I don't know, you guys want to say anything?
It's difficult, like I say. Mid-century modern is something we refer to all the time, but having a modern home going up, and there's, you know, several of them that have slipped through recently that are very ultra-modern in the way that they're designed, it takes away some of the charm, there's no doubt about it. But it's very difficult to get people's taste all, think Key West or, you know, one of the other names, the, you know, vernacular stuff. You know,
Yeah,
that's going to be up their alley on their taste.
And I think it is, but I don't know if whether we need to, as a city, incorporate some sort of aesthetic review that occurs where we can be involved before everything's all, you know, the barn door's shut and everything's gone out. So, you know, I think I would be derelict in what we've been told to do through ordinance if we didn't bring this up.
I think also, if you think about the structure that was there previous to the hurricane, it was a small cottage. It was quaint and charming, which, you know, certainly it was great that it was there for the amount of time that it was there. Helene came and had other plans. So then you take something that was there for that period of time that I believe, and I don't have my notes in front of me, I believe was built probably in the 20s or 30s, maybe somewhere in that vicinity. And then you go to this, I mean, it's really jumping, not apples and oranges, it's like apples and watermelons. I mean, it's really a night and day difference. So I would say that, you know, it's very, to me, it's very stark. If maybe it was a different color, or if there was different elements that were added into it, I don't know. I mean, the wood, it's, I know that we had asked for, you know, more of like kind of that wood, dark wood, you know, garage doors, that kind of thing. I don't know if there's a way that they can go in just to lighten and lessen the intensity, but then also with, in regards to the height, I have in my notes, which I know that we had talked about, I think the ancillary structures or the structures above the stairs. But I have on the rendering that the max roof height is 43 feet 6 inches. And I'm not sure, I'm looking for the, let me just see. Trying to find my,
Yeah, that's what I believe is the max allowable height.
It's in the upper
And then
left-hand
my
corner
roof,
of the.
my roof is under that, is what.
So, let me follow up on that, Danielle. On the roof plan, and Brandon or anybody can chip in if they know the answer here. So, as we look at the aerial view, all right, there's the rooftop. The highest point would be the rooftop where the stairs are, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And then next to that, we have the roof terrace. is the floor of that roof terrace the height of the roof? Or is that built up at all?
It's, in Paso Grill, it's inclusive of the parapet, so there's a different height limit for flat roof structures with a parapet than the overall non-habitable space, which is, in this case, the top of the stairs.
Okay, so, but here's my question, and you may, let me get some more clarification. The parapet height on this would be, what's the parapet height?
Of the roof terrace?
Yeah. I mean, I assume that, is there a parapet that just goes around the terrace, or does it go around the whole structure?
It goes around the terrace, and it is at, and this is, the height that was provided, that is correct, 43 feet 6 inches is the maximum roof height that's shown in the plans. That's measured relative to NAVD 88, which is about mean sea level. Grade for this property is 3.5 feet, so that accounts for that 3.5 foot disparity. But relative to NAVD, roof level 3.5 is at 38 feet 8 inches, which would be above grade 35 feet 2 inches.
If that was supposed to, I got lost in a second. So I guess go to back to what I was saying, or what I'm questioning is, if you're sitting on the roof terrace, okay, your feet are at what height? And is that higher than, well, here's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not quite understanding what we're allowing on rooftops, okay? I mean, I know that, stairways, for example, that's excluded basically by ordinance. It
Right.
doesn't say that, but it does mention elevator shafts and chimneys and stuff like that. But how much are we allowing a rooftop to have accessory things built on it that aren't necessary accessories? Because a necessary accessory to me would be a chimney or a maintenance area or something like that. So is an accessory supposed to be a rooftop lounge to sit around?
No. So the parapet for a flat roof structure, the parapet is the maximum height of 28 feet. That's measured from either design flood elevation or 8 feet above grade. So measuring from grade, the maximum height that a occupiable, usable area on the roof could be is 36 feet. For this project in particular, it's just under that. I'll have to defer to the architect, but I believe it's around 35 feet. There is a stair that overruns that, just as it would be allowed for a hip or gable roof. That is under the additional 4 feet that is allowed. That is about a foot less than that, so about 39 feet. But within that stairwell, there isn't any seating area. There's no habitable space, as the code would classify.
Well, that's the distinction I'm trying to draw. I don't have a problem with the stair aspect. I understand what that is. I'm just saying, but it seems like we're lately going from a flat roof that is a roof that might have, part of an elevator or a staircase or, mechanical stuff onto it, to being entertainment centers. And so that obviously looks like a lot higher when you're looking at it from the street than, I think when they say the roof is supposed to be X number of height, that's fine. To then add something on top of that that's not fixed to the building and is necessary for the building, to me seems like a misapplication of what that means. If you want to sit on your roof, make your roof lower. You don't get the max and then add more stuff on top of it, which we're going to be talking about later for sure. But this just came up first. And so I'm trying to ask, how we, in this particular case, how are we interpreting that lounge area? It sounds like it's under the parapet, the height, right?
The parapet is under the height, correct. The habitable space for this building, and the architect can confirm this, is below the height we allow for a flat roof structure, which is 28 feet above 8 feet above natural grade.
I mean, because my next issue, and this is why I think my point about being something affixed to the roof that's necessary for the structure is differentiated. When do we have a storm and people's lounge chairs start blowing off roofs? I mean, we can't control the individuals that are doing that stuff. And if they're putting it on top of a roof that's already a max, haven't we created a safety issue? And in and of itself, doesn't that indicate why they shouldn't be allowed to do that? So, I think, again, if this area, as you said, is, still under the maximum roof that you can have, then maybe I get it, but let's face it, everybody wants to go on the roof now, and that is going to create a lot of problems, and I don't think we're interpreting that correctly, that it should be, this is the top.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it needs to be 35 feet, period, end of story.
This is going to be different because this is under the residential height.
I would say too, that roof, it's pushed pretty far back. I don't have the exact dimension, but I mean, it could like structurally just extend all the way out to the edge. Oh, you don't have the view, but out to the
If we could pull the
front of the roof,
PowerPoint.
like that would be pretty easy to do. I don't think it makes sense to do. You mentioned seeing it from the street, so and I don't know that you would see it much from the
I think
street.
you're just misunderstanding what I'm saying. It is, I guess I'm trying to determine if you're putting something on a roof that's over the height it's supposed to be an accessory, right?
Yeah.
And that is kind of, who knows what I kind of have a feeling what the definition means, but in your particular case, in this situation, there might not be anything up there, but your people might take lounge chairs up there and set up couches or do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering if that is something that should be allowed from the city because it's already at a maximum height. And if we're all concerned about height, which we are in the historic district, then why are we letting, people basically put a living room on the roof? So I don't know, you understand my point, and I don't know if
understand
that
what you're
applies in this particular case or not. But I think that's a real question that we have to decide as a city going forward is, are we just caving into that essentially and saying, oh, everybody wants to, because all we're going to get is flat roofs, which architecturally aren't particularly historic, and then we're going to get everyone who's going to put a living room on the roof, even though it's not affixed. And I just see lots of problems besides the height aspect of it. For example, in this case, I guess the roof to the stairway would be considered an accessory, but why do you need a roof why do you need a staircase to the roof? In the old days, you had a hatch and you walked, you opened up and you went up a ladder, and that's how you accessed your roof. So are we creating this new architecture where everybody has an elevator or everybody has a staircase that sits on that is in violation of not in violation, but it's higher in height than it's supposed to be. So I think we really need to look at what's the necessity of some of these things. If it's for entertainment purposes, I think that's wrong, and I don't think a city should be allowing that. But that's my comment, I guess, on this. I don't think we have, I'll take y'all's position that where that parapet is, it's under the maximum roof height, so, I get that. I just don't know if as a city we need to start being concerned. I mean, if you have a bar or a restaurant on a rooftop, there's requirements of people removing stuff when a storm's coming up and all that kind of stuff for dangerous reasons. We don't have that in the residential aspect, apparently. And maybe we should, because, when someone has a chaise lounge fly through their window from 45 feet, there's going to be some questions asked as why are those things not being taken off roofs? All right. I guess I don't have any other questions for you. I guess again, this is just for information purposes. Anybody else have any questions?
I don't believe so.
So it looks like there's some changes that are going to be made. And so, I don't know, they don't seem to be too radical. But when that happens, is that something that we're going to see again for informational purpose, so we get to see what the final thing looks like? Or is that just out there? I mean, how do you look at that?
I'd be happy to bring it back with or without the architect. Would you be willing to attend again?
Sure.
Well, I would just say this too. This is not a mandatory attendance for the architect. Because I mean, I'm happy to have you here to answer questions, but this is really just, like I said, you have an opportunity to speak to staff when we're not around. This is the first opportunity we have to do that, to have any kind of discussion. So it's kind of between us. I'm not trying to exclude you, but there's no requirement that you have to be here, is what I'm saying. If you want to be, that's fine. But if you don't, that doesn't work against you or anything.
Okay.
So I guess I would ask then that we get to see you, for informational purposes, I guess we get to see it when it's been finalized. And I'm hopeful perhaps that the owners who are not here might, because I'm doing my role of encouraging historic scale to existing structures, that they might reconsider the architectural aesthetic they have in this case. All right.
I do have a public comment on that item.
Okay. Come forward, please. Who
Amy?
is it?
Amy Lowry?
Oh, I'm on 6, I think.
This was, we
No,
moved
we're
it back
fine.
again. Sorry.
No, this is on, yeah, okay. All right, so now we're going to 6A, right, Mr. Berry?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and this is the site plan number 25106 on 702 Paso Girl Way. And do you want to take comments now? Would that make sense? Or wait till after we have a discussion? I guess we should just go ahead and take comments now. Does anybody here want to speak on this? And if so, come forward.
I prefer to comment after, just because you may cover what I'm asking about.
Okay, I would find that to be acceptable. This is only for information purposes. It's not an action item. I would suggest that we can, as we discuss this, that if anybody wants to comment now, they can. If they want to wait and comment at a later time, they can do that. So does anybody want to make a comment at this moment? All right. Okay, Mr. Berry.
Okay. We pulled PowerPoint. And I don't really have a presentation prepared for this. We do have the architect team, at least several members on the Zoom call. I believe they're able to hear us. Steve, is your team
Oops.
available?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, Scott and I are both here.
Okay, I'm just going to briefly present the project. This is a site plan. It is a commercial development for a temporary lodging facility at 702 Paso Girl Way. It is proposed to be a 17-unit project, 4 stories. You can see a rendering up in the top right. This is currently permitted use under the Community Redevelopment District 8th Avenue regulations pursuant to Land Development Code Section 40.2B. You can see here a survey of the site. The site layout, again, it's hard to make out on the screen, but the site plan is in the packet. It has not been modified since the packet was published. This was the same site plan that was reviewed by staff last week at the Technical Review Committee. The applicant is aware of several comments that we have sent off. To my understanding, a modification will be made and resubmitted at some time. This is the original one that went to the Technical Review Committee. You can see the front elevation and the side elevation. The side elevation is looking from the south side of the structure. Another view of the rendering. This is looking to the northwest. This was also the is primary frontage of the structure. Another one from the northeast, southeast. You can see the rooftop. It has a mechanical area and elevator lobby with landing, stairs. There is a day spa. I did ask the applicant about the day spa. It does comply with the 35-foot height limit. There's another mechanical area to the, what is the south side of the building at the bottom there. This is a lodging facility. I spoke to the applicant last week at Technical Review Committee. The lodging units make up the habitable space of the building. There is no significant interior lobby or amenity space. This is a rental facility. There is no large lobby or other indoor amenity. And you can see a standard floor plan on the bottom of the slide. And this is a 4th floor. There is a mechanical room, but the layout is very similar to the other floors. Again, 17-unit project. And here's just a clear view of the roof amenity plan. You can see here a landscaping plan. The Community Redevelopment District 8th Avenue does not require on-site parking or landscaping in line with the buffer requirements. The applicant has chosen to provide both. They've provided both a front buffer around the parking area, and they do have 17 parking spaces interior to the building on the ground floor. Not a whole lot else to share on this. I know that there has been some interest in this project. Because of that, staff has sent this off for independent zoning review. I do feel that it meets the limited criteria that are currently established in the code. This is a permitted use. They are going through the site plan process. We have brought in an independent zoning reviewer to give a second view on this. And I'm happy to answer questions. Also, the architects are present as well.
Okay. All right, let me first, thank you, Brandon. The first, you had mentioned there were some comments in the tech review that there were some suggestions that I guess, can you tell us what those are, what potential changes might occur before we start?
Sure, and they, on the zoning side, they were pretty minor. I had spoken to the architecture team a few times before making submittal. They had questions about the project, the massing, the height, and so on. So they had worked through that. There were a few minor modifications related to site layout of some of the ancillary elements. There's a transformer. I'll see if I can get back to it. There is a transformer at the southwest side of the site. We'd asked for a modification related to that. We had some questions about parking and storage, registration, and items like that. Nothing that would significantly affect the look or the layout of the building. We had asked about the architecture, but that is a comment. That is not currently a requirement for any particular architectural style. So,
Okay, and just so who's on the Zoom call? Who am I looking at on the screen? So I know just people's names, so I don't be too rude.
Steve Roffey with Fusco Schaefer Pappas, designer.
And
Scott Kelly, Fusco Schaefer Pappas.
I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
Correct.
You're with who? The two of you?
Fusco Schaefer and Pappas Architects.
Okay. And Scott, you're with our architects as well?
Yes.
Okay.
From Fusco, yes.
Are you here locally?
No, we are in Michigan, but have done multiple projects with the Devmar development within Florida.
Okay.
Are any of those located on any of the beach communities?
None on the beach communities, but within the city of St. Pete's as well as Winter Haven, and working on different projects in Fort Myers and other communities, with other projects within other communities.
Not historic communities?
We've done a lot of historic stuff in here in Michigan, but not on St. Pete's Beach, no.
Okay, and who's the other person that we have here?
Steve Roffey with Fusco Schaefer Pappas.
Same, all three are architects? All three of you are architects?
We have our civil engineer listening in as well.
Oh, that's how I was looking. Yeah, we have you on. I can see you, but I didn't know who. I didn't, like I said, I didn't know what you were. Okay, gotcha.
And I'm sorry, and who is he?
Civil engineer.
Civil engineer, okay, thank you.
Okay, before we dive into this into some depth, and I'm just gonna, I would imagine you all are aware that there's a lot of community concern with your design. And I'm trying to make sure, you know, before we get set in stone what our positions are you open to working perhaps with the historic board to create a architectural aesthetic that was more historic? I guess my question would be, assuming for the moment you don't have to change anything, my question would be, why wouldn't you to have the community maybe be more in agreement to what you want to build? So, you know, how fixed are you in your position that this is what you want to build exactly the way it is?
Well, I think ownership has made their selections, or to us at least, that this is the direction they would like to go. And there are also some physical reasons for some of the choices we made for both the building aesthetic as well as the material choices. This is a high potential for storms. This area of the country, it is in a flood zone, so we wanted to make sure that that it would be a building that would withstand a lot of what comes along with the storms, the high winds, the driven rains, and the flood levels that come up. So, you know, we feel that it's, you know, being a poured concrete and concrete block structure, that it will withstand any and all of the storm situation that will occur. We think the materials, we're looking at predominantly a white stucco, which again does very well against storm as well as heat and UV and that type of weather conditions that we're facing here. And generally, we like the idea of a very clean, kind of mid-century modern look, just to have more kind of neutrality in the detailing that will act as to be more compatible with a vernacular architecture than something that comes in and competes with it. And there are, it seems, many examples, especially along Pass-a-Grille and Gulf Way, that of the similar type of architecture in multifamily and hotel use. So I know that Jeff feels pretty strongly that this is what they'd like to do.
Have either of you ever been to Pass-a-Grille?
Yes.
Okay. And you think that this look fits into the architectural aesthetic of the historic district of Pass-a-Grille?
I think I don't see the historic structures of Pass-a-Grille as being as dominant. I think there's very eclectic buildings throughout Pass-a-Grille that fit many different vernaculars or typologies in architecture, and we don't feel that this is out of the realm of character of some of the buildings that are down in that area.
Okay. Now, you listed, or someone did, some examples of buildings on Pass-a-Grille that you think set precedent or similar in this design. Is that what you gentlemen put together?
Yes, we have a small PowerPoint that Brandon has available if you'd like to.
Well, let me just, I'm familiar, I've seen them, and we can do that, but my question would be, those buildings were all built before there was a historic district. They were all built in a different zone. They were all built before there was new ordinances. They were all built without rooftops. They couldn't be built today. So my question is, how can you use those as being precedent when, you know, you're talking about a build that occurs right now? We can't tear those buildings down. because we don't think they fit the historic nature of Paso Grill, because they already exist, but they were built well before there was ever any historic district or any of these ordinances that we're referring to. So you're kind of like using examples of something that are irrelevant. I mean, unless you can tell me something different. I know you showed one residence that was built in the last few years, which has a similar maybe style. I don't know. It doesn't have as much glass and things of that nature. But, you know, I'm trying to understand how this design, I mean, I think you know that there's apparently hundreds of people that have responded that they don't like this design because it doesn't fit within the historic look of Paso Grill. And especially where you are in the CRD, which is right down in the middle of everything. And the scale is way off and all those things. And again, there's a difference between a technical review and an aesthetic review. I'm just saying, do you folks, are you hard and fast with this position? Because, you know, do you really want to have the community not like what you've done? Do you care about that? I mean, I'm really addressing the owners more, you know, or is this just a matter of making money? You know, I mean, and if you are, then I'm going to start asking some questions of Brandon, and we'll start going through these things piece by piece. And you can respond if you want or don't want to respond. But I don't think you have a feeling for the room. That is Paso Grill. It's been a historic district since 1989, and suddenly we're having a huge modern thing built right in the heart of it. And so you can expect that people are going to be upset with that. And maybe you can go ahead and build this the way this is, but you know, I just want to make sure everybody knows where we all sit. I mean, you could build another design where the architecture was slightly different, and you probably wouldn't get near as much, you know, reaction. But, you know, this is just for informational purposes. I'm just trying to find out as much as I can.
Understood.
Okay. All right. So I guess, Brandon, I have some questions for you. Or does anybody else have, before I start asking some questions about some of this stuff? And I don't know if you listened to this earlier when I mentioned what, as the historic board was created for this historic district, one of the ordinances we're supposed to encourage new builds to fit within the historic nature and scale of the existing historic district. So that's what our duty is, to do this, and that's why we're asking these questions. By the same token, we should be discouraging a architectural style that doesn't fit into the historic district. So, okay, so Brandon, I'm going to ask you some questions about Section 440, which is the CRD, which this is a zone this is being built under, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and so it permits principal uses. Well, first up, let me just say the purpose and intent, I'm reading from the ordinance here, the CRD EA district is intended to encourage and promote the continuance of the existing mixed-use development pattern and architectural aesthetic of the area. So we're not anti-development, just so you understand that. We want you to fill in vacant lots and whatever, but we want that being done reasonably and within the architectural aesthetic of the area. So that's why this is all happening, I guess. Okay, so if we move on to Section 40.2, Brandon, which is permitted principal uses and structures, where does this building fit into that?
It's item B, the temporary lodging use.
And temporary lodging, is that defined anywhere?
It is.
Is it where? Because I could never see anything for temporary lodging.
It's in Division 2 of the Land Development Code, and I can read it here.
Oh, I have Division 2, but isn't that actually transient accommodations?
Right, they're used interchangeably, including in our comprehensive plan.
Want to hear that said. Okay, so they're used interchangeably. Okay, so it's temporary lodging, and when they talk about transient accommodations, you say they can be used the same. That refers to bed and breakfasts, motels, and hotels, right?
In certain districts, the city limits them to certain subclassifications, but in this district, it's temporary lodging as a general category, which you know the definition, so.
Right, but when you're building, you have to be within the definition of, I'm asking, of a bed and breakfast or a motel or a hotel.
No, in this district, I believe they fall under a temporary lodging use without requirement for a certain subcategory. We have other zoning districts in the city where we specify what type is allowed. For example, we don't allow motels in certain zoning districts. We don't allow resort
Right.
condos, so.
I'm just trying to define the nature of what we have here, okay? Because I don't see anything that describes temporary lodging. That's what I'm saying. Where is that authority that, because my question is, this really isn't a hotel. It's an Airbnb. I mean, even the owner in something said it's more like a luxury condo. And so I'm just trying to find out where the authority is to build it under this zone when it seems to be a hybrid scenario there's no lobby. There's no dining, there's no room service, there's how usually hotels are defined to have some of these services, and this doesn't have that. So this is a new creation of this. I guess you don't even have to, you get your key online or something. You don't even have, I don't even believe there's an employee there. So I'm just trying to figure out, is this really something that this code allows?
So if a term is not defined, it defaults to the dictionary definition, but historically, I can say that staff have used transient accommodation and temporary lodging interchangeably. They're used interchangeably in the comprehensive plan as well. A transient accommodation use means a facility containing one or more transient accommodation units. Transient accommodation unit means an individual room or rooms within a transient accommodation use, which circles back to what was just defined, designed to be rented as a single unit for transient occupancy. And transient occupancy is a rental of less than 30 days. So that is the only qualifier. They will need to register with the state as a lodging facility.
Okay, so along those lines, because again, this is, as I said in the previous situation, this is the first opportunity that this board has had to talk about it, because we can't talk to each other because of the sunshine laws. Maybe 10 days ago, we got these plans for the first time for information purposes. That's what obviously we're trying to gather today. And so these are not completed plans. So, and I don't know if you know the answer to some of these things, but these are answers that I think are important to us. These 17 spaces are just defined on the plan as being 2 bedrooms. Okay, well, what does that mean? How many bathrooms are? Is it 1 bathroom or 2 bathrooms? Do we know the answer to that?
I don't know that at this point. We're
Okay,
waiting on
well,
you to.
I would want to.
Typically 2 bedrooms and 2 baths.
Okay. So now we're talking about 34 toilets in that area, right? And potentially 34 rooms that can be rented. Is each room going to have its own doorway to the corridor so you can rent 34 units instead of 17 units? We don't know the answer to that because the plans don't tell us.
They will not.
They will not what?
17 units. There are 17 units that have only 1 entry per unit.
Okay, but they need 2 bathrooms? I mean, the reason I ask this stuff, just so you know, it's not unusual sometimes for places to have these double bedrooms and then be able to lock them apart from each other and turn 2 bedrooms or a single unit into 2 units. And obviously by code, this has to be a single unit. So I want to see the plans when you've done them that show the bathrooms and the doors and all that kind of stuff to make sure that you're actually doing what you say you're going to do. Because again, this is the first time we've seen this. These plans aren't complete. So, Brandon, the next question, because some of these units are 900, 1,000 square feet. That's what, 30 by 30 feet or more. Those are big.
Do they feature kitchens, I'm assuming, each unit?
Yes.
And they're full kitchens, so we're talking
Full kitchen.
full kitchens.
You got questions about parking and everything?
Yeah, we got a whole bunch, but yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
17 spaces, and one of them's a handicap, so it's only 16 spaces. You got big units with 2 bedrooms. You got people that are going to be coming around. It's going to create parking issues around the neighboring community. We're giving them 10 feet of height on the bottom and 10 feet of height on the top, so it'll be a total of almost 50 feet off ground, off grade. It's just mammoth compared to anything else on 8th Avenue, which has a maximum height of 35, except for one building that was a mistake.
Well, and these are more, Brandon, these are more questions I think I'm directing at you from the standpoint of, I don't know how many bedrooms, they say 2 bedrooms. We haven't seen the plans that show that. I'm very concerned that we're talking about 34 toilets, considering the history of that lot is that lot was ROR. And you couldn't build this on an ROR lot.
Correct.
And this became a CRD lot by really violating the spirit of what it was supposed to be for. It was combined with lots on 8th Avenue for one big structure. That didn't happen, so they broke them apart, and yet this still remains zoned to CRD, which it's an outlier. It's not on 8th Avenue. It's not on Gulf Way. In the CRD ordinances, it doesn't really speak about this type of lot, which has blossomed out of nowhere really in the last couple of years because it was supposed to be ROR. So now we've got, I'm suggesting sloppiness from the city that we wound up letting this, for our time, we were never brought up on this, allowing this particular lot to go from being an ROR lot to a CRD lot without being connected to anything on 8th Avenue.
I would like to just interject that on the Pinellas County Tax Appraiser, it's still listed as a single-family home. It's not listed as a commercial entity. So,
Yeah. I mean, I know that too, but I know that it's citywide.
you know how it's zoned, however,
Right. Okay, so anyway, so let's, some of the questions I have here is, when we go to CRD, I want to talk about the height a little bit later, but when we talk about 4011, the minimum off-street parking requirements, how does this design or these plans, the site plan, get around the requirements of 40.11 subsection 2? A in particular. Because this property does abut an alley.
They're maintaining the cut. As I mentioned before, under Division 23, they're not required to provide on-site parking. I think the board just brought up very reasonable concerns about not providing any parking on this site. All I can say, I believe this is the correct interpretation, but I sent it off to independent review.
Okay, and so let's just talk about that for a minute. So just so we're all clear, the zone they're under says that parcels abutting an alley shall not place parking in the front yard of the zoning lot, nor will be provided driveway access from the main thoroughfare. Parking may be placed in the rear or side yard. Access shall be provided via the alley. Parcels without alley access shall be granted a curb cut. Well, right now, this is a vacant piece of property with the exception of the 2 old homes in the back that obviously are going to have to get demolished for them to build this. So then we have a vacant lot, which is a blank canvas. They don't have any grandfather right to a curb cut just because there is one. They still have to, this says parcels abutting an alley shall, that means mandatory, shall not place parking in the front yard. So this site plan is in violation of 40.11? I mean, I don't want to hear the staff's response to it, but I don't see how you get around that unless there's, I mean, there used to be an alley that went from 8th Avenue to the edge of this property, but that was vacated years ago under, I don't know what reason that occurred. And so now there's just that east-west alley that runs right up to that property. And so it just seems to me, we've taken a piece of property that was ROR, we've magically converted it into a CRD property, and now they don't want to abide by the rules, or I won't say they prepared a site plan that doesn't follow 4011. And so I would hope the staff would agree that that's a clear reading of what this says, and if they want to do what they want to do, then they need to get a variance for that. So when we hear these stories that, this is just for informational purposes because there's no variances required, and you start digging into some of this stuff, I will suggest to you that they do need a variance to build that because they do abut an alley. And we can wait till we hear this again or whatever, but I'd love to hear the staff of the city's response to how 4011 doesn't apply. And if you don't want to do that right today, that's fine, but I'm just saying, I think that's a significant issue that compromises this whole design or site plan.
I gave my interpretation of this. We do have it under independent review, so if they find contrary to that, I'll share it with the board.
Okay, and when this independent review comes along, are they going to know what discussion we just had right here?
I'll definitely share it with them.
Okay. Now, I have a question too. We can talk about the height, and if either board members want to chip in, I think we all understand in looking at, if you want to put that up on the screen, I don't know, where we talk about the building height. So essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, they basically have is it 10-foot, what do we call that?
Base flood elevation?
Yeah, no, but it also includes the other part of it, not the base flood elevation, there's like 6 or 7, right, feet?
Above grade, yes.
Yes, and then there's what do we call that next little section that we give them?
Oh, the freeboard, the design flood elevation is,
Yes, and so those two combined are how many feet?
Give me just a moment. To the design flood elevation, required design flood elevation is approximately 6.5 feet.
Okay, so Joe, just in a perfect world here, we know that the CRD, the zone says it's the building height is 35 feet, right? And we've decided, we've had many arguments about this, whether the 35 feet comes from grade or includes the BFE. The city has interpreted it that you get to add the BFE into that, right?
Correct, yes.
And so what number are we at on that location? 35 plus what?
Approximately 6.5. The elevation showing the finished floor, so possibly 7 feet above grade.
Okay, so does that mean that we can say that the building height from grade is 42 feet? That should be where the roof is?
Approximately, yes.
And what is it right now, as the plans say?
It is 35 feet above the base flood, so it's 1 foot under, and then they have that overrun, the non-habitable overrun.
Yeah, but isn't the base flood, the whole thing, isn't the first floor 10 feet high?
Yes, but the measurement doesn't start at 10 feet above grade. It starts at, and I'm sorry, I'm referring to the packet here. I'll pull up the elevation so I can refer to it on the screen. It's hard to see, but the outside line on the top image, that starts at the base flood elevation for the property. That is not at the first lodging level. That is shown from base flood.
Right, so I know it's.
So you're 15 feet before you hit the first lodging level, if I looked at that correctly.
It's 10, the first floor, the ground parking level is 10 feet, 2 inches. The second floor, which is the lodging level, starts about 10.5 feet above the ground.
Right, but if I look to the right there, the line that's outside of that, we have 10.2, and then we have 35 feet above that, right?
Correct, yes.
And that's supposed to be the roof height, is that correct?
No, it's not.
No, it's,
No. The 35 feet starts at the BFE, which is about 5.5 feet from grade.
Okay, so I guess, yeah, I think we're all arriving at the same thing. I'm just asking, where I see the line that says 35 feet, so that's basically from the grade to the top of the roof. So when I'm looking at this, the top,
There's 35 feet from base flood elevation of 10.
yes,
So it's at 10.2.
so no, what I'm trying to, I'm just trying to get the number the number which the city says is the roof, the actual roof height. What
Which
is that
what
number?
we are at, 35 feet from the base flood elevation, our roof height, that level is at 35 feet
I
above the
understand.
base flood elevation.
You understand what I'm talking about? From grade, how high is the roof?
About 40 foot, I'm sorry. 5, 6, yeah, about 40 foot 6.
46, is that what you said?
40 foot 6.
40 foot
40
6.
foot.
40 foot 6.
Okay, and so that's where we're interpreting the 35 feet as being, that's the high as you can build it right there, under the code. Is that right, Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have another, how many feet until we get to the top of the,
10.
10 more feet of
Well, it's actually-
overrun.
it's more than 10 feet because you can see the thing goes over that line.
So it looks like maybe 11?
So we've got almost 41 feet, and then we've got 10 feet on top of that. I'm just trying to get a feeling if that's 51 feet. And the nearby structures are all in the CRD, or I think with the exception of one, maybe, they're all under 30 feet. And so I guess my question would be, can you go, Brandon, can you go to the graphic representations of what this, but yeah, not that one, keep going, not that one. Yes, this is a question to the architects. Why did you choose to put all those big tan blocks around this building? I mean, according to this, it looks like there's a couple buildings taller than this building right almost next door to it.
Those are, that's a representation of, that is online, available online, of all the existing building heights.
Whoa, not even remotely close.
Not close.
Not even remotely close.
Yeah, we-
This building is going to be twice as big as anything nearby. So my question is, why did you prepare this to make it look like it was in scale with the rest of the neighborhood when it's not? Why did you choose to make those big blocks instead of the ones that were legitimate? Was it to make it look like it was in scale to fool people?
No, this is what's available online for massing of existing buildings. It's a, I don't know what program that is. Is it Revit? But we use multiple programs like this.
Yes, I'm sure. So when you build a skyscraper in downtown St. Pete, it's going to show these little tiny blocks around the skyscraper? Or do you choose another one that shows bigger blocks?
Depends on where you are.
Yeah, well, okay, so my question is, where this is, that's entirely misleading. All right? It gives the impression that this fits into the neighborhood when it doesn't even remotely do that.
No.
So my question is that by design that you guys have done that, or is it just because of the computer?
Well, we're trying to use available information that's online. We didn't go out and survey the entire peninsula.
And may I just ask, have both of you been to Pass the Grill before? I'm sorry. Or just one of you?
I've been to Paso Grill many times.
Okay, you have, but the other gentleman, have you guys been there?
Yeah.
No. So visiting Paso Grill many times, have you ever seen anything like this and the height that you're showing as examples, the brown boxes? On 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th? Probably not, because they don't exist. Because this isn't to the size, scope, or scale of the community.
So, okay, if we can, so Brandon, I want to talk about this extra 10 or 11 feet that are on top. And again, the plans aren't complete, but can you go to the rooftop view, please? Yeah. There sure is a lot of mechanical area there. I'd really like to know the mechanical parts that are going to be underneath all that, because that's got to be 80 feet by 40 feet or something like that. And so I'm a little concerned. And is that just a wall around there, or will that mechanical area have a roof or a sealed top to it? Do you know the answer to that?
So on the south side of the structure, the
Yes.
larger area that is not roofed.
Okay.
There is a wall around it, but it's not roofed.
Okay, and the wall is designed, I noticed there's a lot of elevation in this plan, but there's no rooftop elevation plan from the sideways. Do you know how high those walls are going to be?
There was one in the packet. I don't know if I made it into the PowerPoint, but
I think it's the very end.
yeah, you can kind of see it here. Do you see that at the
Yeah.
closer side of the structure?
But see, I don't know, this is an artist's representation, which we know is kind of flawed already by the way they've presented it. So I don't know if that's really how high the walls are going to be or not. I mean, I think the plan said, it said 42 inches MIN, period. And I don't know if that means minimum, I would assume, which means I think 42 is supposed to be max for anything like that, but I don't know.
We're actually representing what would be the legal height of a guardrail on that roof. 42 inches is the minimum.
Right, okay.
So it'd be
Yes,
probably
that's
higher.
that's for the guardrail. I'm talking about the interior walls, like around the mechanical units and that kind of stuff.
And that, we haven't determined what that's going to be.
Okay. All right, well, when you determine that, we'd like to see that again, because we have a lot of, we have a lot of questions.
When you have the requirements for the way structures have to be mounted to a roof for mechanical units, you have to use Florida product approved structures to be able to put those mechanical units on, which raises the height of them. And what we're trying to do is minimize the site of the mechanical units from the road or down the street.
Right, and just so you understand, I don't have a problem with that, okay? I get the mechanical units to be shielded, that makes some sense. What I have a problem with is all the rest of the stuff that's for entertainment purposes. Because I don't see how how is that, and I'm gonna ask you, Brandon, how is that allowed under 40.4? We've already seen what the roof max is. What's the exception to allow them to put all this other stuff on the roof? I mean, there's a pool, for goodness sakes. How deep is the pool? Is it built up off the roof? Can you put an above-ground pool on the roof? I mean, where's the limit? What are we saying? What are we?
So with the spa specifically, I did ask about that at TRC. They said it would meet the height limit of 35. The spa will meet the height limit. We asked about that at technical review committee, and they said it would meet the 35-foot height limit for the pool feature. The spa.
Okay, but what I don't understand is the pool feature goes into the ground, and if they're already at the max, aren't they then dropping the pool into the room below them?
There's a mechanical room below that.
I don't think so. It didn't look like that when I checked it out.
And we have our corridor is also of less height than the units. So a portion of it is within the corridor, a portion of it is within the mechanical space.
Okay, so what is, I think you all can recognize we're concerned with the height of these things, okay? So you have 2 staircases up the roof. Why is there a necessity for 2 staircases and then bring a rooftop above them?
Because I have to have access to 2 staircases for emergency egress.
Okay? And you have an elevator as well.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so why do you need an emergency egress from the rooftop? It's not habitable, supposedly.
You need to provide, based on occupant load and the distances of the rooftop itself, I need to provide 2 egress points off the roof.
But that's only if you have something on the roof, right? If you don't have to have 2 in case the air conditioning breaks down, do you?
No, but I need to have it for the people that are on the roof.
Okay.
What's the maximum occupancy on the roof?
We haven't gone through the life safety of it, but it's more than 50, and that's where I'm required to have it.
All right, well, here's what I'm getting at. This is through the city as well. Brandon, not only do we have staircases, in the front of the structure, we have a design element which goes up, I guess, 50-some feet, which isn't part of, I don't know how that's allowed, because it's a good 5 to 8 feet higher than it's supposed to be, and it's built into the whole design look. So it makes the whole building look bigger than, so where's the exception in the front? There's actually on every side, you follow what I'm talking about, on the eastern view, how that centerpiece, columns come up, we're looking at it right now, and then there's the roof of that, or the top of that is maybe 10 feet over the rooftop?
Right. So I know we've talked about this in the context of the Paso Grill overlay. I know we've talked about the CRD intentionally or not being part of the Paso Grill overlay. It's part of the Paso Grill Historic District, but it's not part of the zoning Paso Grill overlay. Certain spaces are not subject to the height limitations anywhere except in the Paso Grill overlay. And in the Paso Grill overlay, they are, and that's based on the definition in Division 2 and the height limitation in Section 7.2 of the Land Development Code. There are architectural and non-habitable appurtenances allowed above the roof line, limited for the height of the structure.
Okay, what is that under, you said?
That's in Division 2, the definition of height, and then 7.2K in the Land Development Code.
I apologize. What was again? In Section 2, what was it? 2 point what?
It's 2.1. It's the definition of height.
Of height, right. Okay, so, and where does that allow for the design feature to be higher? What part of that in the definition of height allows that?
Well, that's the architectural features are specifically in 7.2K. In addition, the height limitations, except as provided in the Paso Grill Overlay District, shall not apply to non-habitable architectural features
Wants to get rid of that anyway.
extending.
Wants to get rid of every one of these. Okay. Well, that's just a stairway.
I'm sorry. Do you mind muting? Scott? Do you mind muting? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Shall not apply to non-habitable architectural features extending no more than 10 feet above the eave line of the roof. There is a limitation based on FAA.
And that's in 7.62 or something?
7.2K height limitations.
And where is that referred to in the CRD, under the zone, that you can use that?
That's introduction to district regulations, which includes the districts of the city. It excludes the Paso Grill overlay specifically.
which we have to have.
Okay, I mean, I'll have to look at that stuff, but where do we, does the authority exist to build all this structure on the rooftop? I mean, because it's above the height limit.
It falls into non-habitable space, and I'll read the definition of habitable space out of the building code.
Yep. I mean, I know what it is, but if you want to read it, that's fine.
Space in a building for living, sleeping, eating, or cooking.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, what we're opening the door to is when I look at height and they say in that definition at the very end, it says the measurement shall not be inclusive, so I'm going to say excludes. The measurement shall not be inclusive of elevator shaft, chimneys, mechanical rooms, and we all understand what that means. I believe we also understand that are affixed items that have nothing to do with the entertainment of the people who live in the building. That's, and I would argue, elevator shaft doesn't mean an elevator that goes to the roof. It means the mechanical part on top of an elevator that has to pop out the roof. Mm-hmm. So that's how you allow for an accessory, the height to be higher when it's something that's necessary for the building. Mm-hmm. Because in this example, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we say people can build swimming pools on top of the roof that's over the height, or they can put TVs on a wall with an umbrella over it, like they've done in their example here, or they build a waiting room for the elevator that has a roof over it, because all that's not habitable, then can everybody put a pool on their roof? Have we opened the door to that everyone can, we're allowing, if you have a flat roof, go ahead and put a pool on top of it. Who cares? That's okay. It's not habitable. You can't live in a swimming pool. Okay, so what if we decide you want to take your entire roof and put another roof over it, but leave it open air, so you don't get in the rain? You can't live in that open air. It's not habitable, but now you've got a whole nother roof over the size of the roof. I really think we're not understanding or misinterpreting what accessory means when we're talking about height. We've allowed this, supposedly without variance, for them to add a visual fifth floor. And that's the reality of it. We're looking at it, and it's entirely not to scale, and it shouldn't be permitted. If they want to build a two-story building with a rooftop, whatever, okay. But my God, it goes on and on and on, and I just don't see where the exception is in the code that says they can do that.
And there's the null space as well, which is a little concerning, where when you look at the bird's eye view, the rendering, there's a lot of vacant, empty space. So what is that being set aside for? What is the purpose of that?
Referring to the mechanical fields?
No, we're talking about the area for humans to party.
It's a terrace, basically.
It's a terrace. So that's all of that space. It looks like there's one on the rear that's a little bit smaller, and then there's a larger space. So is that for like bands and stuff like that, if somebody wanted to do an event up there?
No, you don't have that kind of room. It's going to be mostly for sitting. We have basically a main space on the east half for sitting and visiting and poolside lounging. And then on the east half or west half, there's a sunset seating area, basically. Watch a sunset.
So that large portion that spans almost the length of the building is for sunset viewing?
No, this would be the small area at the west end of the connector walk.
Okay, what about for the other space?
The parts that look like bricks are
again, a larger seating area.
The rest of it is mechanical. They've got
No.
2 large mechanical areas up there.
And I have a question. Is there some reason that people can't walk to the beach and look at the sunset? Like everybody else does on the beach? Okay, okay, back to Brandon, I got another question for you. So, about this rooftop stuff. In 40.4, in the CRD, it talks about allowable conditional uses and structures, okay? And in that section, which we know is really primarily about that you can move a single family, essentially a house, to the CRD as long as it's historic, right? You know, the big part of that. But just to address what that section says, it says the purpose of this section is to allow for single family and 2-family residential uses and structures for only saving and or moving locally designated historic structures, comma, as well as address rooftop uses. All right? So there's our rooftop thing. And then if you look at the bottom of that, in subsection B, it says roof dining and or drinking areas subject to section 624. And if you look up section 624, that talks about a bar or rooftop dining and how they have to go about it, right? Okay, so conversely, if it's not roof dining or drinking areas that's subject to section 624, they can't have something on the roof.
Roof dining and drinking areas defined in Division 2, an area located above the first habitable floor of the restaurant or bar to which it is accessory. They don't have a restaurant or a bar.
Exactly. If they had a restaurant or bar, they'd have to get a conditional use. So the only difference between this and a restaurant and a bar is they aren't selling liquor up there. They can allow all the people that are staying there to carry their booze and their food up there. They've got a pool up there. They've got lounge chairs up there. They got all those things. So they're getting around a conditional use, which is, in 40.04, rooftop use is defined as being an actual restaurant or bar. It's not a restaurant or bar, so therefore they can't use the rooftop for that. I mean,
I don't know of any blanket commercial prohibitions on the use of a rooftop. I understand the concerns, and all I can say is that this was sent off for
my
independent.
blanket prohibition is that it's over the height limit. If they wanted to do this a whole 10 feet lower, then maybe they could. But they've built a maximum structure, and then they want to put in a whole nother visual floor on it, and I don't see the authority that exists in the zone to allow them to do that. I mean, when you talk about rooftop drinking and the dining areas, which is subject, commercial to 6.24, there's all the requirements for, if the storm comes, you got to take all this stuff off the roof, you got to do all these things to protect the neighborhood. Well, these people don't have to do that. So are we opening the door, like I said, for people to just, Francis, do you want to say something? I'm sorry. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to make a comment to reiterate that we do appreciate all the feedback. It's very helpful. Wanted to reiterate 2 things. One, that we've taken all your comments down, and we will make sure that we submit them to the secondary review that Brandon Barry has mentioned. But I also want to ask our legal team that you take a look at the land use and the points that our chair is raising, and that team also respond and make a written record to your concerns and whether or not there are any land use code from a legal perspective. So if you could note that for me and work with our city attorney.
Thank you very much. Excellent point. So I do think these are legitimate issues that we need to resolve, because, when the message to the residents is this site plan needs no variances, so tough luck. No one can really comment on it, and I've made some comments now. I think they're in violation of the alley they need to get a conditional, like a variance for that. I don't think they can do the rooftop. I think that's a misunderstanding of what accessory means. Otherwise, like I said, we're opening the door to everybody putting a bar on their, everybody having a bar on their roof that's over than the height it can be. I'd like to know, you know, like I said, if you just built an open air, you know, covered area on your rooftop, does that not count towards height? It's not habitable. I mean, is that what we're saying we can do? I don't think so. I think what we're saying is if it's necessary, like you know, an elevator shaft or a chimney, that's much different than having a wall you can put a TV on and put lounge chairs around. So let's see what we have here too.
I would also like to point out in section 40.14, I don't see a public entrance that are, it says public entrance, buildings that are open to the public shall have an entrance for pedestrians from the street to the building interior. It should be a distinctive and prominent element of the architectural design, should be open to the public during business hours, which in this case, what are the business hours? Because they're not defined, because there's not going to be a desk or office. And then they should incorporate lighting, et cetera, and mass surface or finish to show where you have a pedestrian entry, which the only pedestrian entry that I see would be through a parking garage.
That is part of our draft regulations. That's what we've been working on. That is not the current effective code, I believe. We added those in, the design requirements, yes. So.
Okay, and along those lines, that's a really good point, because what we're creating here, potentially, is 34 bedrooms with 34 toilets, and if the place is filled, you might have 30, 50, 100 people. They all have access to the roof. They can all take their drinks and their food up there or whatever, and there's nobody that on site to even remotely enforce it or put security on it. There's nobody that works there. So we've created, we have a structure of multiple Airbnbs, which we already know we have problems with noise sometimes with the parties that go on and that kind of stuff. And we're making an entire structure that's going to have multiple people to do that, all to be up at 50 feet in the air, looking down on Paso Grill, way out of scale. And that's a good point for legal here. I think we've created potentially a real issue. That's why I started out at the beginning and said, is this really a hotel? You know, it's a whole new thing. And we're being taken advantage of if we don't get on top of this and get on top of this. If we don't at least have some requirement. I mean, what's the stop from somebody that's saying, hey, come on up, we're having a party on the roof. You know, it's not a bar. We just come on up, bring your own. And having lived a life when I was younger, I'd probably be doing that. So, you know, what I'm saying is that's the nature of the people that come down the beach and want to do that. And so I think we need to reinterpret what rooftop means, especially when it's
code.
I also have concerns with the property located at 700 Paso Grill Way. So that's presently a residential home. So now we're saying that we're going to take multiple vehicles, pulling them in and out of a parking garage with a residential home less than 10 feet away. So what is that parking or that driving or turning radius to allow for that? And deliveries, if they're getting deliveries, how is that feasible?
right. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, Brandon. How are they doing their garbage there?
Originally, I believe there was a dumpster in the southwest corner. They have a area within the garage. I think it's visible in the plans. The lowest level of the garage near the exit on the west side, it's going to be a trash bin area. We asked them about that. They felt that that was sufficient for the.
Okay, well, considering the garbage doesn't, the guys don't go into in the alleys or in your yard anymore, how are they gonna wheel their dumpster out to the street? And then who's gonna do that since no one's on site?
From my understanding, and maybe the architect team can address this, but we asked this at technical review committee, and they will have a staff member on site. Scott, can you confirm that?
Yeah, the property management team that's hired to run the building will be able to access the site, and bring the dumpsters out to the street and put them back in when it's complete.
Is the property management team, do you know if that's going to be Tech Travel, who I know Brandon's one of the owners of this property, and the adjacent property? Is that who the management team would be?
My guess is that Devmar would use the property management teams that they have on the rest of their properties. I don't know who that is.
I'm just looking at some of my notes here that I'm trying to figure out. So the other thing that people are concerned about, when they built the Berkeley Beach Club or the Dewey, a lot of people felt that that was higher than was supposedly allowed, and we won't get into that argument at this moment, but essentially this structure is that with another floor added onto it. And so I don't know how we went from the Berkeley Beach Club probably being the max, I don't think they built it underneath the maximum, to then be allowing another floor like this place has. I just think it's just an inconsistency that I can't resolve, unless you want to tell me that the Berkeley Beach Club was not built to the maximum height, and I'm pretty confident it was. So, and that's 3 floors and a rooftop, actual bar. And then this is 4 floors and a rooftop. And so I don't have those old plans, but it seems to me that that's a inconsistency that's visual to anybody that lives down there. So you might want to, because I don't believe anything changed in the CRD, in the code, changed the height. I think the Berkeley Beach Club didn't have to get a conditional use permit to put a bar on top, but now someone would. I think that's the only thing that's changed. And so,
right, I'm looking at the project plans right now. The Berkeley Beach Club was built at 42 and a half feet above the ground. It also had an elevator shaft overrun of just under 7 feet. The height has actually gone down slightly since that project was built because we're under new flood maps, and the base flood elevation has dropped by about 2 feet. So
okay.
Now that is to the bar roof, measuring from grade.
To the bar roof.
Correct. Yes. So no, to the top of the second lodging level at that business, it's significantly lower. They do not have that enclosed entire 3rd floor.
Okay, so I guess that kind of answered my question. So you're saying, although I'm surprised to hear that actually the base flood is lower than it was when the Berkeley was built. So top of the Berkeley, or the Dewey, the Berkeley Beach Club, the top of the bar is higher than this building's roof?
It's 1.5 to 2 feet higher above the ground, which obviously varies across 8th Avenue, but it's
by inches maybe, but go ahead.
It's slightly taller, about 1.5 to 2 feet to the top of the bar compared to the top of the roof of this structure.
We probably should shoot a drone there, because I just visually, I think everyone's smiling in the audience that knows the area. I don't think that makes sense. Because effectively, as I said, if you're saying the base flood elevation is a foot or 2 lower, and they're building 4 stories with a rooftop and the Berkeley built a 3-story with a rooftop, yet the Berkeley is higher.
So-
It can't be. I know it isn't.
No. There are other facilities that are non-habitable that overrun at this project. The Berkeley's only overrun was the elevator shaft. But the Berkeley project is 42.5 feet above the grade to the top of the bar roof. This project is approximately 40.5 feet above grade to the top of the 4th level roof. So
Okay.
there are more rooftop features that overrun in this project.
So the Berkeley basically could enclose, they could add another, they could add, I'm not saying they would or that they are allowed, but they could technically have a whole nother story. Replace the bar with an actual floor.
Correct.
But they chose not to do that when they built it before, I guess. All right.
I mean, at this juncture, I think it's kind of laughable to even point out that they have 2 points of LED signage. I think that's the least of our concerns.
Right, I saw that too.
But I think that's something,
I appreciate that.
Okay, I don't think, does anybody in the board have more things they want to bring up at this point? Do you have anything, Sean?
No.
Oh, I didn't hear you said
I'm
this.
sorry, I'd answer.
I guess, is there any audience comments at this time? Or, I'm sorry, are people on the Zoom calls, any comments you want to make or anything you want to discuss?
No comments at this time.
Okay. Is any audience members that want to speak?
Amy Lowry.
Hi, Amy Lowry, 102 19th Avenue, St. Pete Beach. I think almost everything was answered that I was concerned about. Of course, like the other hundreds of people, I'm concerned about how the size and scale and the architectural design fits into the historic neighborhood, which was addressed today. I think the explanation of the height was my next question, and I think I understand how that works. But what I don't understand is that when you have a rooftop and you have an mechanicals on top of the rooftop, then why, I don't understand the rooftop. It seems to me like the elevator should protrude into the rooftop for just where it has to cap off, but I don't really understand why we're adding all that height and extra space up there, which just seems like way too much for that fragile little historic area. That's my opinion, and I'd like some more clarification on that, and I think that's going to happen. And then I guess what you are talking about here is Airbnb, 17 Airbnbs, or however that works, without staff on site, which is a scary proposition as a neighbor because I don't know who's there to control partying or whatever might happen to happen upstairs. But even if they didn't have the rooftop and their problems, you know, I find that a little troubling. My last thought was, and answered, was the 17 rooms, which are, you know, actually 17 units, 34 rooms, 34 toilets. I just, you know, so many times in my 50 years on St. Pete Beach, I've watched the city approve plans where in the end those turned into double rooms. I've watched it probably half a dozen times since in my 50 years here. So I know that kind of a situation can happen. Maybe not with this owner, but maybe an owner down the line. So I do feel like that needs some tight controls. I will say the one thing I really love about the building is the 17 parking places. So, you know, that it's, like I say, a fragile little historic area. I have businesses on that street, and parking, I'm very thankful that they're including that in the design. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Okay. So I think where we're at, at this moment, is, Brandon, I would like to see when they give us more information about what's been left out of these plans. I would like to see a more final plan, site plan, even though it's just for informational purposes, and these gentlemen don't have to be present for that. If they don't want to be, they certainly can. And I would like, to hear from legal about some of the things I've raised, and from staff as well at some point about some of the issues about whether, variances are needed, or the rooftop issue is a legitimate concern, and how that all plays out. So with that being said, do we add this to next month is just a couple weeks away. Do we add this to like October's calendar? I mean, I would ask to do that if they think they can give us information by then. And I don't think there's any major rush from the standpoint they still have two buildings down there that they have to get demolition permits on, and have those actually demolished before they could even start time to finish up these plans. And I would ask, or I'm going to say, we need to have that brought back in front of the historic board.
Understood.
So I guess that would be dependent on these gentlemen and their owners finishing up their plans, so we can actually look at a finished product and get answers to some of these questions we have. And again, it's not mandatory, they don't have to be here, but because of as I said in the very, very beginning, because of the historic preservation ordinance, we're empowered to get this information. And so I don't want to be, just ignored or say, tough luck, So I guess we're finished with that point today, but I would ask that we get it back on the calendar whenever you would find it to be that they have that information.
Okay, it will likely be October, but I'll include that.
All right. Okay, so next, sorry everybody, on the agenda is, let's see. The only thing, we're down to the design review, is that right, Mr. Berry?
Yes.
And I don't think there's anything else. I mean, anybody can stick around if they want, but there's no other situations where we have. Okay, all right. Let's go to 5B then.
Yeah, so this is a early template for some of the content for the design review guidebook. We have Tara Salmieri, who is working on the technical details, which will be the actual preferred building types, and then some of the other types that maybe aren't as preferred, but that we wish to ensure have consistent design details throughout the district. Chair Lowry has prepared a draft introduction. I have prepared a potential framework for the preferred types of structures that we would like to see in the district. This is effectively just a summary of what was in our 2003 and 2015 surveys. Just wanted to present it to the board, get any early feedback. We don't have to go through each document, but if you've had a chance to read them, I'd be happy to get feedback.
Yeah, I was going to say, first off, that introduction draft, that is really a rough draft. Obviously, I used the term PAG in there. That would not be in the actual thing. It would actually say Pass the Grill. I would appreciate, I don't know how you want to do this, Brandon, if board members want to, add suggestions or mark that up and send them to you, and then you can send them back out to us or whatever, that would be great, because I know they can't directly communicate, we can't with each other.
That'd be great. And with us down 2 members, I'll email them as well and see if we could maybe have this as an item at the September meeting.
That would be great. And then as far as the design guidebook, do you folks want to talk about that right now as far as the things that are on there? I guess this is kind of where we're kind of deciding what we want to include as the primary styles and that kind of thing? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying? I mean, I personally, I think the folk bungalow, the 30s and 40s, I think that's great. 40s on, I think all that stuff is really good. When we get down to ranch, I don't know if we have too many examples in Pass a Grill, but maybe we should go ahead and include that. Same with those last 3. There are a few examples, I think, that are.
There are. In ranch, I was kind of trying to decide if it fell into a secondary style. More than half the homes in the Don Cesar neighborhood are ranch or ranch inspired.
Right.
In Pass a Grill, we probably have 5 really good examples. So
Well, I would maybe make a suggestion we put ranch down in the secondary styles just because of that. And if and whenever the Don Cesar neighborhood becomes a historic district, it'll have its own set of rules because it's different than, Pass a Grill, and we can do a guideline, a guidebook where that's more prevalent.
okay.
We talked about this, and I know we've mentioned it too. I would love to be able to, when we get this guidebook, it'd be similar to the one that was proposed but never enacted back in '08 or something, the one that's like got color pictures and things like that. And we're going to have to get, I don't know, professional photographers. I don't know if that's something Tara handles or not, but perhaps if we decide these are the styles we're going to put in this guidebook, if we can identify the homes that go with them, so we can get include those, or at least one or two example in the guidebook, a visual example. As I said before, I think in the guidebook we also need to have a section that are new builds that fit within the historical aesthetic. I think we ought to have a section that talks about showing homes that have been raised in the air. I know we have a little bit of a potential discussion about the historic nature of that, but there are some homes that have been raised that look great, historic homes. And I think we also have had some homes that have been moved, which is good. And, I think we just need to have so when somebody decides they're going to buy a house or build a house, they have in looking at the guidebook, they can say, this is kind of what I build. This is what they look like. Or if I'm buying an old house, I can raise it in the air, or I can raise it, get it historically designated, but raise it 2 feet or whatever it is, just so a person has the option to know all the things that are available to them, so we don't have to, basically put the FEMA waivers as the stuff that being historic allows them to do. I don't know a lot of people know that. It's not up front, and I think that the guidebook should have something that refers to that option.
I would agree. And I also think the fact that if they go historic, that it's not a detriment. It's not going to harm them in any capacity, because I think that's one thing we've continued to hear over and over is, well, how is it going to negatively affect me?
Right. Obviously, it's voluntary, but unless we have that whole set of pamphlets for historic preservation, which are great, but they probably should be essentially incorporated into the guidebook itself, you know what I mean? So it's all one-stop shop kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. One thing that could definitely help, and I'll ask the other members for this as well. We know the homes that have been raised. I think there are a couple really good examples
Yep.
over the last 10 years or so. If the board members, and it doesn't have to be for the September meeting, just whenever you get time, if you could take photos or at least to give addresses of the new builds that you think work
Yep.
well. I think we have some good examples of
Right.
appropriate additions as well, but the new builds that you think are appropriate would be a great help.
Okay. Let's, the next meeting is what, in 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Can we just put on there as, I guess it would be a discussion item, to follow up, so maybe people can, I've got pictures on my phone right now, but how do I get those to you? You know what I mean? Do you want me just to kind of just like text them to you, or what's the, I mean, I'm pretty tech illiterate as far as that goes. My wife's not, but, you know,
Email if you can, if not, we can.
we can figure out how to put a photo on an email, I guess. Okay, well then we can just email some of that stuff to you.
Yes.
And so maybe we can, in a couple of weeks, we can review that. All right. Is that the last thing we have?
Just
No, update on short-term rental enforcement. Sorry. Right.
Yes, I just wanted to give a quick update on this. I did speak to our code enforcement team. They have not stopped enforcing the short-term rental ordinance. That's citywide, not just in Paso Grill. One of the challenges in Paso Grill and some areas of the Don Cesar neighborhood in particular is that we allow those 3 short-term rentals
Right.
per year per unit. So they have to effectively find 3 violations before a violation is cited. They are still responding to complaints. They still check websites and so on, so that they are still enforcing that. But if there is a property that you have a complaint about, feel free to call it in.
Well, that's one thing that you said that that's what I wanted to hear. They're still checking the websites, because to me, I know that was a fairly effective way in the past.
Yes.
With the enforcement people, and I didn't know if they'd stepped away from that or that still is ongoing. That's great.
I have a question on this. So as a homeowner, if somebody wants to do a short-term rental, is there anything, like, do they have to notify the city of? Is that something that could be feasible down the road of saying, if we do a short-term rental, then we would have to notify someone in the city? Not that you guys don't have enough to do, but.
Well, we've looked into that, and we've looked at a registration process, which I believe it was just last year. The state, we have a grandfathered ordinance. We could not have the ordinance that we have if we adopted it today. There are some state limitations, but the state just recently authorized cities with grandfathered ordinances to come up with a registration process that doesn't result in them losing their grandfathered status. So we're looking into that. We just have to be careful how we do it, because we don't want to run the risk of losing
Sure.
what we have. So
Okay. Then I guess if we go on to 5D, which was the update on the status of storm damage publicly owned buildings.
yeah, I just wanted to say, thankfully the Warren Webster got its new roof. It, very in keeping with what was originally there, slightly thicker shingles, so they should last a good amount of time. I know that our public services team met on the Mary Pier last week, I believe it was. I haven't been able to get an update from them yet. I'll try to have one for September, unless anyone's heard anything in particular.
I got a little bit of an update just earlier today. It's out for bids, and I think that process is ending in the next week or something like that. So I think they'll have a road forward at that point. And the same thing, I believe, for the Shuffleboard Court. They've put that out for bids. And that just happened, I think. So that's going to be a little bit longer before we get some more information on that. But both of those are supposedly going to be rebuilt.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
I have nothing.
I would just like to say, Brandon, I really, really appreciate sincerely what you do for the city. And I'm sorry that, I'm being a bit loud and stuff like that, but that's just, that was the nature of what we had to do here. And that's why in the beginning, I wanted to ask those folks if, we didn't have to go a hard way, particularly. So I do really thank everything you do, and I really respect you. Appreciate it.
Welcome. And I did want to say I did speak to Lynn right before the meeting. I had a little bit of a heads up on what was going on. But I know we talked in the past about the value of an actual local historic district, not the National Register, not
Right.
the overlay, but an actual designated historic district. And that might be something that we want to start talking about in more detail to see
Well,
if there's interest.
That would be great. I think we should. And I also, we have this technical review, which, if you look up the definition of technical, I mean, it's not in the same house at all as aesthetic. You're looking at certain things. Do they fit, these numbers kind of, but we don't have any kind of aesthetic review. I mean, we kind of have this information thing, which is kind of turning into that. And obviously we don't really have the ability to tell somebody no necessarily, unless there's some other reasons there. But I'm wondering whether we should have what maybe we should rename this an aesthetic review or something like that. So we can talk about those kind of things where it's more pointed than just information, you know?
And I think this board might have been named that in the early 2000s when you first historic and aesthetic, yeah. We could look at that. The reason I bring up the local district is because, and the attorney can, our attorneys can corroborate this, but it's very difficult to lower development standards in Florida. One of the ways to do that without necessarily everyone opting into it is through a historic district, a local historic district, where owners put voluntary limitations on themselves, but they, it applies to the whole area, and you come up with the historic aesthetic. You're not looking necessarily what's there. You have a preferred mass scale design.
Do you think would Lynn be our person probably to give that information for us?
She's been involved with establishing them. We've been in talks with the county in St. Petersburg. They have the Mirror Lake District. The county has its own historic district. So I think we have some good information we can put together.
Well, can we, for our next meeting, just have an update? I mean, she doesn't have to have an answer for us or anything like that, but just to say she's kind of like, looking at it and maybe she's moving in that direction to give us a presentation or educate us to some degree.
Yes, yeah, we can add something in.
Okay. Anything else? Thanks, everybody.